Welcome to the Passive Income Podcast. I am your host, Dividend Dave. Please be sure to join the Passive Income Posse by clicking that subscribe button below. Super excited for this episode. Joining me is Kate. You can find her on X, the app formerly known as Twitter, at Kate Duffy. That's Kait. Kate, please go ahead and give yourself an introduction.
Hi. First of all, I want to say thank you for having me on. I feel a bit like not so qualified to be on a finance podcast, but my name's Kaitlin Duffy. I just recently started investing like 3 to 4 years ago, kind of just by chance. A guy in the office had Robinhood. He's like, you should get Robinhood. I was like, what is this? And then I just kind of dove in and started researching, and it was during COVID, so I was really into looking up COVID stocks. So one of the first trades I ever made was this mask company. APT is the ticker. Alpha Pro Tech, I believe, is the company. So I just thought, okay, COVID, this may or may not make sense. The stock went like crazy. I bought it for less than $10. It went all the way to 40 in the pre-market this one morning.
Oh, wow.
I was going crazy because I was like a kind of degen at the time. Like I was working in real estate doing rentals mostly, like as a leasing agent. So I was kind of like a little burnt out, like wanted something new, and then everybody was leaving New York. So my job kind of went really downhill in
Right.
2020. I was not doing very well. But then, the stocks, and you kind of become obsessed. And then 3 years goes by, and here I am, still here, ups and downs, still going.
And living through it all. Yeah. You mentioned a few great points there. So you mentioned Robinhood. So obviously you're in the U.S. Well, and then you mentioned New York and New York City. I definitely want to get into talking about New York City as well at some point here. And yeah, that's an amazing beginning too. Like to just kind of pick a stock that does that. Like 4x's goes from 10 to 40. Not every beginning investor is that lucky.
Beginner's luck. I'm a Duffy. I'm Irish. It might have something to do with
Right,
it.
the luck of the Irish, eh?
Exactly. But I'll never forget waking up early in the morning, seeing, obviously Robinhood wasn't opening until 9:30 at that time, but you could still
Right,
put a sell order in. So mine ended up filling for the whatever price in the 30s or 40s or whatever it was. And I just was like, okay, I'm here.
I'm hooked.
I was like, yeah, I'm like a degen, like, oh my God. And then I start, making these spreadsheets like crazy, tracking all this information that was so unnecessary. But it was like, you have to really dive in. Like, I've seen a lot of things online, like, oh, you can pay me $100, you can
Oh,
do this, you could do that. But it's like, you really just have to try and sit and watch and learn and just
learn.
learn, learn, learn. And then you finally one day, everything just clicks. And it's obviously not going to be perfect. Like, I still lose money on stocks. Like, let's be honest, like, trading is
Yeah,
hard, investing is hard. When your long term investment is down, it's like, but you just gotta really honestly not look at the long term portfolio. This is what I've learned. And you just got to tune out the noise. If it's something you honestly truly believe in as a long term trade.
right. You mentioned a couple of great points there. So you mentioned, like, trading. So are you into day trading and options trading? And then you also mentioned long-term investing and to just, like, you know, take your long-term investments and sort of look at them as little as possible. So, I guess, do you have your portfolio sort of divvied up into those different categories of trading and long term?
Totally. I've blown up accounts. I haven't touched Weeble to trade since I forget when, whenever I blew it up.
Right.
And I have my Robinhood for just options, like, that's it, and then Fidelity I have for my IRA and my just, like, whatever trade account, mostly, like, short-term swings. But I honestly have been trying to use Thinkorswim lately for the swing and the medium term because I just really like the platform.
Right.
Um, but I'm still just I like Robinhood. I'm just gonna say it right now. You guys can hate, but
Yeah.
I really like it because when you sell, the money's there, you have a debit card, I pay myself whatever if I have the time to trade and I am day trading with SPY or whatever it is, like, I spend the money sometimes. Like, I know that I probably should compound it, but I look at this, like, swing account as, like, take profits and then, start over it. Like, I try to do it in the beginning of the month. So, like, tomorrow, September 1st, I'll start over with, like, a new amount, like, just X amount of money, put it in, and try to make it go up. If it goes down, I'm not putting any more cash
Right.
in. It's just like the rule. Because it's
And I
not
think
easy.
I think that's a great point too. Sometimes it's okay to take your profits and spend that money and enjoy life and spend that $5 at Starbucks or $50 at whatever or right? Like there are times when you just have to spend a little bit of money and enjoy life. And of course, like again, like you said, we're all here to try to, invest for the long term and better our future selves. But at the end of the day, you can't just put every single penny away and be Ebenezer Scrooge, right? Like you've got to find that balance of living life and rewarding your future self, if that makes sense to you.
I mean, totally. Like, I know that a lot of people on Twitter or whatever are just compounding, which I do try to do, but I do take profits at some point and start over with that original like amount because I feel like it gives me control. Like I used to be really reckless and just throw every paycheck and like try to do options and like I didn't really have a strategy. It was just like really messy and like
Trading
of
like a degen, as you mentioned, right? Exactly the definition of trading like a degen.
exactly. So now I really have a strategy that I try to abide by for the most part. Obviously, you're going to want to jump in a trade here and there, but I really try to do like 2 to 3 week swings, like buy the dip, scale in, take a couple calls, see where it goes. Like, I'm not like putting my whole account in weekly calls and sitting there with my heart beating, like, is this gonna go down? Like, that's just not how I do it. I just find more success with being more patient. Of course, scalping is fun, but if you're in a trade scalping and there's news, SPY drops, you're in a trade expiring Friday, that's not where I want to be. Like, I want to have
Right.
3 weeks, like 2 weeks. I want to be like 2% in my whole account or whatever it is, like 5%. And like, that's it. Small trades. Like, I'm really not like pushing like hundreds of thousands. Obviously, like, look at
Yeah.
my apartment in the background. But just I think that's where I was failing at first was too big of size. Like now I just do a few $100 here, scale in a couple calls, add on the dip. You can play both sides is what I'm
Yeah.
really learning. Um, so yeah, once I've found my strategy and I feel like confident with my entry, I'm doing so much better than just like let's all go in this penny stock with 5 million market cap just because like X trades tweeted. Like, that's not really a strategy. So, I watch carefully what people are doing. I can see the share count. I know the bullshit when I see it. I'm not like trading these stocks. You can, don't get me wrong. I just would not be caught dead like just relying on someone on Twitter anymore for a trade.
Right. Right. Interesting. Let's kind of shift gears over to sort of that more long-term portfolio that it sounded like at the beginning you mentioned you sort of keep them separate of like here's my trading account, here's what I do to try to make money, whether it's with options or just day trading or swing trading or whatever. What does your more long-term portfolio look like?
So I was long a few stocks at the beginning of the year. I bought Meta for I think 95 and I sold some other bags and put it in Meta. I basically trimmed losses, still held some, but went in Meta, held that and it kept going. So I was like trimming it slowly. I mean, I didn't have a lot of shares, but just kind of took profit at that. And
Right.
then I'm in a company called Hims and Hers. That's my second largest position. It's a like women's and men's like sexual health, like all like wellness brand. I'm sure you've heard of it. They
I've
basically
never heard of that. Apparently, I do not have any sexual health.
I actually chased I'm not gonna lie, I chased it, like, above 10, and then it dropped to, like, 6. I've been kinda, like, adding more, but it's like, for me, I see this just like my opinion. I really love the company, so I hope that they continue to grow. They actually are debt-free.
Well,
So
that's always a good sign. Well, I don't wanna say always, but 99% of the time, that's a good sign if a company is debt-free, right?
yeah, they're like either debt free or very close to debt free. Um, I'm not a big fundamentals girl, clearly, but I am learning kind of like the basics.
Yeah.
So they had a really good earnings report this past quarter that had me excited for the future. So it's like I think right now it's $7. I bought it for like 11. So if you're I'm holding a bag on it, but like, like we said, this is like the game of long term. You
That's
just
yeah, you can
keep
dollar cost average down if you're still, adding to your position, just keep dollar cost averaging down, and then your yield on cost is becomes lower and lower.
exactly. So I guess where I went wrong, like I'm not perfect, but
None of us
end
are.
end of 2021, like or no. Yeah, end of 2021, I really regret not taking some profits because of the, headwinds of the market coming our way, which like
Right.
I I like didn't know all of these things. Like, oh, inflation is bad for stocks. You have to buy gold and oil and like war. And I'm like, I don't know this trade. Like, I kind of had a feeling like SPY was a little toppy and they said the Fed selling, but like
You
I'm
were like,
just
"What does that mean?"
yeah, like I'm just not advanced. So I learned a lot in 2022
Yeah.
about the bear side, inflation. I learned all about oil stocks. I had a few good trades on oil, but overall 2022 like was not a good year for me. 2023 like doing better, not as great as I want to be, but like this is the thing like with the long term.
Right.
It's like you could have an amazing year. Everybody had an amazing 2021, even
Yeah, bull
2020.
markets are easy to have, a lot of fun in, and everybody does great, and the stock market and every stock you buy just skyrockets, and everybody is like, drinks all around basically, and and then yeah, and then 2022, the reality hits of like, this can't go on forever, and suddenly you have, obviously a bit of a bull market, a little bit of a market correction, whatever you wanna call it, and like yourself, a lot of people, even people investing for, 20, 30, 40 years, I think a lot of people learned a lot in 2022 where it's like, "Oh yeah, this happens, right? There is a cyclical nature to this."
I mean, even like the professionals, like I live on the Upper East Side, so it's a pretty big neighborhood. And I'll just go sit at a coffee shop and like kind of hope like to overhear people talking about stocks or like, I don't know, I don't
Yeah.
go just to want to meet people into stocks, but like you get what I mean. So even like the guy that I met a hedge fund manager last May who I overheard talking about, oh, this market and this and that. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm short Netflix. Like, so I overheard, I said, like, I have a stock for you, bro. Like, so I gave, it was May 2022, the stock had already gone crazy. It was Devon Energy. The ticker's DVN. They I don't know if you know the company. This
Not at
is
all.
like this is a great company. They have a lot of cash. I don't know exactly how much they have now, but at the time their cash position was going up a lot. So I thought oil stocks had one more little run in it, and I said you should buy this stock. He said he wasn't gonna buy it, but he like gave me his card. He's like, "All right, if it goes up, like we'll talk, like blah blah blah." So it went up 20%. I was like, "All right, bro, like hire me." Like it was like, "No." But it just goes to show, like it's just funny because he had no clue about oil ripping again. He was all
Right.
like, "Why is SPY down?" So I think we all can like, even though I'm a degen, technically dumb money, I think at that time in like 2022, nobody knew what was gonna happen or what was going on. You could pretend I had a tweet from that book, The Intelligent Investor. I don't know if you've read it, but like I read this book and there's a chapter all about inflation. Like,
Right.
so I kind of had the right idea. Like, I tweeted, guys, like, should we get puts? Like, is inflation bad? Like, I didn't even really like understand the concept really of inflation until last year. Like, the real, like, Fed interest rates, inflation, how it all ties together. Like, I
And
had no,
prices just skyrocketing everywhere.
yeah. So, like, whatever. I learned a lot. I had some horrible trades. I had a few good trades, but overall 2022, like I took an L. Like,
Yeah.
and I
I
feel
think
like
a
a
lot of
lot
people did.
of I mean, like, what can you do? It's like it is what it is. Like I know what I should have done. I know what I'm gonna do better like next time. And I know that it fluctuates, and like if you really are invested in the long term, like you just have to wait. There's
Yeah,
no like and
exactly.
stay hedged and like get some puts. Like come on, like I own AMC. Like AMC was the best trade I ever had in 2021, I think, besides whatever, I don't remember exactly, but I think we get attached to our best trade. So I was like, I'm a movie blogger before I was a trader. Like I love movies. I kind of love like everyone's like, oh, the CEO used the retail investors. Like, what do you like? We were trading. I didn't even think of it like that. It was just a comeback trade. It was so fun. Like, so I invested the money I made back, and then it went down. So like I didn't see it as like a holding a bag so much. Like, but now I'm kind
Right.
of like looking back, I wish I trimmed, added, whatever. I wish I did it a little differently. But I'm not like selling because I made a mistake. It's just the way it is. I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah.
Like I don't think you can say you're wrong until you're wrong. Like it's there's so much time.
Yeah, a few thoughts there. Hindsight is 2020. So we all look back saying, "Oh, I wish I had have done this," or wish I had have did that," or whatever. So it's easy to look back and say, "I should have done this." Well, and then the other part is, well, none of us can predict the future. So, you know, we don't know what's going to happen in 2024 or 25. Like, is there going to be another huge bull run? It's possible. Probably, actually, it's probable. Maybe, in my opinion. Again, you go back to 2022, you said you took a huge L, and I said, a lot of people did. But if you look again with that long-term mindset and over time, and you look at a 20 or 30-year chart of the S&P 500, and yeah, there's going to be a couple of those years where people do take losses, but over the course of that, whether it's 15, 20, 30 years, you're generally just going up and up and up, right? So, um,
Hopefully. I think like the beginning of this year for me was amazing because I wasn't really following the news. I was looking at the charts. So sometimes they are so disconnected. Like, oh, you see the news. Oh, this inflation's going to go up. It's like, but I thought the inflation trade happened already last year when they said we were going to go higher. So my instinct at the end of 2022 was not only like, I'm so sick of this bear market, but it
Yeah,
was like, what goes down has to come up. Like SPY bears, why wouldn't you cover at 365? I mean, like it went down so much, and I felt like the fear was the most at that bottom, like in the end of 2022, when everybody's like, oh, it's gonna go to 300. Like, I just remember like SPX tweets to 3,200, this and that. I'm like, in my head, you missed the short. It was like it went 470 to 360. And you think
right.
it's gonna crash another 30%. I just feel like because it was such a slow grind. I think I just noticed one day in October, I was like, all right, I'm kind of feeling like this is coming back. And then I forget when I pulled the trigger on Facebook. It was around like $95 I bought. So whenever that was, that's when I started buying the dip and like trading SPY. And then I think my best month was in May when we had that like huge surge. Like it was on my birthday, May 20th. It was a Friday. I'll never forget. Like,
You're
oh
like,
my
happy birthday
God,
to me.
literally. And it was like just, but you can't predict it. Like you really honestly have to look every day and try to just gauge. Well, not every day if you're a trader, you're looking every day. If you're investing, like probably not looking at SPY every 5 minutes, like
Right.
me as psycho. Even if I'm not even if I'm like not trading, sometimes I'll just like check it. I'm like, oh, where is like because it's
Yeah.
honestly fun. Like the market is fun and like I think people hate on retail, but there's so many smart people on I've learned a lot just like reading people's ideas and like obviously you have to put in the time.
Yeah,
But
so
I
when you say retail, you mean retail investors like ourselves, where again on X, the Twitter, so many great accounts that you can follow and learn from. Well, like yourself and so many others that put out great content. And I agree with you 100%. There's a lot of very knowledgeable people within the retail investor space.
it's crazy. Like even the ones with less than 200 followers or whatever, like
Yeah,
I've met some really smart people that are just under the radar that I'm like kind of friends with. Like I invited in my chat, like whatever. Like it's like but I think it can also be toxic. Like I have a few experiences from meeting people, some of the bigger accounts, like, oh, are you really like as big as you say? Or like, are you just trying to like get something from someone and use this as an excuse? So I think being a
yeah,
girl, like, guys, I'm not trying to say like you have it easier, but I think on Twitter, if you're a female trying to do stuff or just even posting ideas, like you're susceptible of a lot of different types of things. Great
yeah, for
things,
sure.
like I'm happy you messaged me, like I'm happy to connect, like you're cool, but also, excuse me, I feel like people can be weird. Like
Yeah,
people it's just the facts, like and people can be very hateful, and I admit to myself, like, to you and whatever whoever is watching, I've been, like, guilty of being mad, like, maybe saying something that I didn't mean, just like, "Oh, we're fighting about stocks," or like, "This is going down and you're holding it." It's like, "Really, dude? Like, you don't understand investing. If you're, like, mad about or like tweeting, "Oh, this stock is down today. It sucks." Like, okay, it's
it
one
could
day,
be up again tomorrow though, because that's the way the market works, right?
literally. And I think, like, obviously, I'm sure I hold AMC. As I said, it's
Yeah,
whatever. I have some shares, and I think a lot of people hate it for like no reason. Like, there has been a lot of drama with the stock, but at the end of the day, like, do retail investors really want like movies to go out of business? Like, shouldn't we all be like against the hedge funds? So
right.
I kind of don't understand when retail sides like so negatively about certain stocks. I just think it's like stupid. Like, who cares what people trade? Like, I talk shit sometimes, but overall, I'm never gonna like. make fun of someone for holding something. Like, not to say I haven't before back in the 2020s, like, oh, we're fighting about plug power and like, whatever penny stuff. I don't know,
Yeah.
whatever was
Well,
running.
sometimes a good Twitter fight is just fun, right?
I Unless they don't leave you alone and it keeps going forever, then you definitely don't want it. But
Right.
I think people just at the end of the day need to like have emotional intelligence and just kind of take a step back and realize like we're not all in the same situation. Like I'm not like day trading AMC. Sometimes I am, but I'm like for the most part I'm holding it. So
Yeah.
sometimes I don't even look like I'm like, oh, it was down this last week. Oh my god, everybody was flip. I mean, I'm down on it right now. I was up, I was down. It's like a but it's
Yeah.
that's the game. It's kind of fun. Like I like being in. Like I don't want to chase. So like for me, I think there's kind of an advantage. Like obviously the tax is lower. You don't have to worry. But it's just like there's something about already being in. Like now is my experience versus like chasing and being in and out. Oh, I have to sell. I have to buy. It's like stressful. Like I'd
Yeah, yeah.
rather just have my end goal and like that's it, like when I want to sell. And my goal is way higher than like maybe a day trader who's looking for X price.
Mhm. I wanna switch gears here a little bit. You mentioned I think you said Upper East Side, which I believe is Manhattan. I am really not familiar with New York City. I've never been there. All all I know about New York City is what I've seen in movies, TV shows, and on YouTube videos, which is obviously still a lot because there's a lot of TV shows and movies and YouTube videos, centered around New York, so I feel like even though I've never been there, I still know enough about it to talk about New York City, and the cost of living in New York City. I've seen some, like, especially on YouTube videos where it's just like people are paying absolutely crazy rent, and I'm sitting here in my, like, house on a nearly an acre of property, and I'm like, I literally pay like one quarter of that for a mortgage, so I own the house. It's not rent. I guess maybe just speak to living in New York and the cost of living in New York City, and I'll let you take it from there.
It's definitely like at first when you move here, like it's stressful because I mean, I moved here when I was 23 or 24, so it's been almost 10 years since I've, moved. But I think the key is like you need to have a circle of friends who like are there for you because if
Right?
it wasn't for my friends when I first moved here, I would have never made it. Like I was sleeping in a basement in Brooklyn for free for a month, like cooking every night for my best friends from Cleveland, Ohio is where I'm from. So in exchange for that first 2 months, like, they're like, if you buy the food, you clean, walk the dog. It's kind of like funny, right? And then
Yeah.
you get the job and then you get your first apartment. And I've had some nightmare roommate situations. But this is honestly the first time I've ever lived alone in the city. I've been in this apartment for 3 years. So it is a blessing to live by yourself in the city. Like I feel like it's a luxury, honestly. And I feel privileged, like not privileged, but like I got a good rate. So like I'm paying not like a little over 2,000 a month. It's a good location. It's a
Yeah.
studio. It's like 400 square feet, maybe 350, 375. High ceilings. I like, it's a good area. It's a quiet block. It's like more towards the river on the east side. So I think it's worth it because I don't have a car. I don't have to clean up after anyone. I don't have somebody's dog like barking. Like
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
not, I mean, at least in my apartment, my neighbors definitely have a dog barking. But I mean, that's besides the point. It's like I live in a co-op, so it's not my apartment, I'm renting from the owner, but basically a co-op is you don't own the actual property, you own shares of the building. So
Right.
there's 2 different types of New York. There's co-ops and condos. So you either own it outright, like a condo, or a co-op is like you own shares. It's kind of like each building is a stock, like you own shares.
Yeah.
It's interesting. So I actually don't think it's that bad because I work a lot and I have different things going on. So I always have like money coming in and I just kind of started something else. So it's not going to be so worrisome, but you really have to like budget. I mean, I was living super frugally like during COVID and like, then 2021 came and I was like going to Miami and then I kind of got 2022 like, okay, this is
Yeah.
scary again. It was like, oh my God, am I going to have money? So, but I think like you find your balance, like your budget and like just you make it work. I mean, I work like I'm tired, but also like I don't have a car, I don't have gas, I don't have kids. Like I don't even have cable. Like I have a TV, but I don't watch TV. Um so yeah, I think like you
You're
just
making it work basically, yeah.
you have to make
And
it work. And I think it's exaggerated. Like I think, oh, you can't survive on 150K in New York. Like yes, you can. Like I don't know where this is coming from. Like it's definitely harder now to find a cheap apartment. I will say the rent race is like not something I want to be in. Like I'm so
right,
grateful to have this apartment. Like I'm never leaving. Like I'm gonna stay here forever. Probably not,
right.
um, but yeah, I've heard people like in my neighborhood saying they're paying like 1,000 more than me for the same thing, and I'm like, oh. But then at the same time, my next door neighbor, she pays like 1,700. I pay 2,200. It's like the same apartment. So it's just kind of like
Yeah,
it depends on the rent. Like if it's controlled, they can do whatever they want. My guy obviously does whatever he wants, and I'm not gonna not pay.
yeah, yeah,
So, but yeah, it definitely is stressful, especially when you want to be like going out and like you want to be partying, you want to
Mhm.
meet people. It
Living
gets
life,
lonely.
right?
Yeah, like you want to go to the Hamptons in the summer, like you want to here and like stuff is expensive, like so I think if you are like not making 300K a year, like obviously if you're making that much, like that's great for you. I'm sure you're having a fun time. But if
Yeah,
you're excuse me, if you're like me right now, I'm just kind of switching over to something new. I tried doing my own thing. I'm trying to do a few different things. So for someone like me right now, I don't have the luxury of like getting a house in the Hamptons for a month with like
right.
my friends. It's like just not
Yeah.
on my thing right now.
So honestly, that amount of rent isn't as scary as I thought because I've seen some rents here in Canada that are very similar to that. Even in not just in Toronto and Vancouver where we know the cost of living is high, but even in some of the smaller cities around Canada where rents can be extremely high as well. So, and obviously, I don't know. I can't compare because I don't I don't shop for apartments. I have my house here that I'm more than happy in. So, but yeah, I've just kind of heard through the grapevine there are some crazy rentals,
I
some
mean, I
some
was
crazy rental prices out there.
it's crazy. Like I was living in Brooklyn for almost 7, 8 years in a pretty nice neighborhood, but I had roommates. But I was paying like 1,400 for a room.
Wow.
Okay, but it was like a new building, but also small. Okay, the light was great, but there was construction everywhere. It was just like kind of nightmarish, but it was beautiful. But you're paying like collectively 3,800 or 4,000 for 3 people. It's just kind of like, what? Like,
Yeah.
why is this so much? It's ridiculous. So I left Brooklyn and I'm happy I did. I honestly really like where I live and I've met a lot of cool people. Like, there's a bar a block away, there's like CVS a block away, there's like pizza a block away. Like everything you need is it's probably not good at the same time because I don't leave my little bubble that much, but it I get what I need and it's like
Yeah.
and I'm not like schlepping around on the train like going all over the place, which is nice because I don't like to ride the train.
But to that point, though, it's there for you when you don't have a car, and from my understanding, having a car in New York City would just be a nightmare anyway, so you're better off not paying gas, insurance, probably car payments, and a parking spot. I'm sure just paying for parking in New York City has to be absolutely bonkers, and so,
Yeah,
yeah, when you do need to get around, that train and other public transit or taxis or Ubers are there for you, right?
yeah, like I used to ride the train all the time. Now I don't really need to unless I have to like go to the office or like really go somewhere far. There's also a ferry stop right by my apartment. So I take the ferry now a lot, like in the summer. Like if you're
Yeah.
depressed enough, a ferry ride feels like a cruise. Like, let's be honest. Like
I've been there. I've been in Vancouver. I've been there where you just like you hop on the like it was called False Creek Ferries and it just kind of goes around. If any of my viewers are familiar with Vancouver, they sort of know the False Creek Ferries and it just sort of goes around this little bay and makes little stops. And I agree with you 100%. If you feel like you pay like $6 for your ferry ticket or whatever it was at the time, and you feel like you're on a cruise because you're out on the water in the summer. You're having, you're actually going somewhere. I get it 110%.
It's $4 one way and you can transfer. Like I took it, there's a place called the Rockaways here. It's basically like the poor person's Hamptons. But there's like it's a beautiful beach. Like don't get me wrong, I'm not like saying it's bad or anything. It's gorgeous. Like it feels like, I mean, I'm kind of like out there, but I would say it's kind of like the Venice Beach of New York. If that might
Right.
be a little extreme, but um so there's a boat that goes there. It's like an hour, but the ride is beautiful and like you're like out in the sun, like you said. It just like it feels like you're really going somewhere, but really you're just going like an hour in
Yeah.
New York. But it's fun. Like that's my number one. Like if I can't afford or whatever, if I don't want to pay boku dollars to go to the Hamptons, which I've been, it's fun, it's great. I did it. I saw it, I was there, it was like, but it's not like something I wanna be
You
spending
kind of you
thousands
check
of
that
dollars.
box. You're like been there, done that. Box checked.
Yeah, and, like, not to say I would not still go, but just right now, like, I'm doing just little things, I'm trying to save, I'm doing my little side things, like,
Right.
I'm not working like a 9 to 5, bringing in that 300K currently, just full disclosure.
We
Hopefully soon.
never really did get into actually kind of switching back to that idea of like passive income and investing and long-term investing. We never really did get into talking much about dividends. Do you have any dividends in your portfolio?
That's why I was laughing because I actually don't, but my grandfather, I found this out after I started doing stocks. Like my mom told me this. Like, so my grandma and grandpa were big investors in Amazon, Microsoft, J&J. I don't know when they bought, but they must have bought early
At a
because
good time for Amazon and Microsoft, no doubt, if they're your grandparents, right?
yeah, but I never knew about this. Like, but then my mom bought a house and I was like, but I don't know if J&J does a dividend. But she
Yeah, they
said,
do.
"Oh,"
I'm pretty sure they do.
so she said, "Oh, I cashed out Johnson and Johnson and bought a house." I was like, "Oh, well, that's great." I'm like, can't afford food. No, I'm joking. But like that kind of inspired me. Like, if they had this kind of like risk on for companies they thought were the next thing. Like maybe it runs in the family. Maybe Hims, the stock I told you,
You're
maybe
right.
they'll do a dividend soon. I mean, I want to own like thousands and thousands of shares of Hims. I don't have a lot. It's like an embarrassing amount. I don't even want to say because I don't want
Yeah.
people to make fun of me. But I'm like I said, I'm not like I think on Twitter or X, there's a lot of like showing off. And I'm come from such a like humble, hardworking, middle class family that like of course I want to like Rolex and like this and I want to post like my little drink pics. Oh, I'm in the city, la la la. But like I think actually at the end of the day, it's lame. And I
Right.
think like I'm more now about instead of screenshots, this and that, I want to post like charts, like ideas. I made this whole spreadsheet tracking healthcare stocks, like adding columns every week, which I need to do this week. I haven't updated it, but I like doing more of that. I'd rather like post a chart and the idea with the entry and have it go, and then people message me, "Oh, good call." Then like me post some bullshit. It could be fake, fucking sorry,
It's
return.
okay.
Who knows? Who knows? Like if it's even real. Like it could be a fake paper trade. Like nobody
Right.
knows anymore what is real, what is fake. Nobody can prove they're worth paying X dollar per month for their service. Like, I just think there's so much bullshit out there. It's like, let's get back to like the basics here.
Yeah.
There's fundamental analysis and technical analysis. That's like the two. And like, screenshots aren't showing me what you're doing. Like, you're just like kind of bullshit. Like, it just,
Mhm.
I'm not a fan of the screenshots. I used to do it, but now I'm more like I post my ideas like every day or whatever, every week. I try to post at least something. This past week, I was training for this new position, so I wasn't really active, but that's more my thing. Like show me some like something something like instead of like yeah we fucking killed it today in the fucking chat, bro. It's just like so tacky. Like I don't know. I just like it's not my thing. Of course, I get excited. I want everybody winning, but I also like I'm not like an asshole. Like so, kind of when I see these people like they get all like I'm like if you're really making 15K a day, why are you sitting on Twitter like fighting with
Yeah.
people and starting drama. Like it's just like it kind of
Yeah,
makes
you're
no
not making 15K a day if you're trying to start, Twitter fights, basically, right?
and I talk shit, don't get me wrong. Like people know a lot of people don't like me on this site, believe it or not, because I'm so nice and so funny. I'm joking.
And
But
beautiful.
thank you. But I just think people really honestly are so hateful and you can tell. And I think when I
I
was
don't get where that hate comes from either, like, I'm a much more positive person, and so I really don't get where all the hate comes from. I it doesn't it doesn't comprehend. I cannot compute, basically, right? Like, why are you hating on a certain person for whatever, whether it's their investing strategy or any number of other things, and it's just like,
oh,
relax, let it go, right?
I had people making up okay, I have a big forehead apparently. So I've learned so there's a few people who like make up burner accounts like, "Oh, fucking five head, this and that." I'm like, "I thought you're trading. Why aren't you trading right now? Aren't you like a day trader? Why are you on this fake name like stalking and fucking talking shit?" So I do think people are really honestly mostly full of shit on Twitter and like exaggerated a lot, which we all do. It's all
Right.
exaggerated. Like, come on, this is fun. We all want attention. We all want to like get likes and views and just like have fun. But I think if there's a fine line of like, what are you doing to like get this attention and like why do you need to do XYZ? Like it just I don't know.
Yeah. And speaking of X, the app formerly known as Twitter, at Kate Duffy, KaitDuffy. Agent Bubblegum. I absolutely love that. Where does Agent Bubblegum come from?
Well, I was a real estate salesperson, which I just learned you cannot call yourself a realtor unless you're in the National Realtors Association or something. So I was a licensed real estate salesperson, and
What's the
the
I
guy,
didn't know there was a difference.
realtor is apparently some like I don't know if it's a club, but it's like a membership. You're like a realtor. Like in New
Oh,
York, we don't
okay.
have realtors. We have like licensed salespeople. So this guy was like who I was working with. We were closing a lot of deals, like having a lot of fun and just like making up like, oh, what's my nickname? And he's like, oh, you're Agent Bubblegum. So
And
I
it
just
just
kind of like
stuck.
it just kind of stuck, and I had my real name on there for a while. Like I didn't care. I was like, this is literally me. I'm not like whatever doofus trades or whatever people call themselves. I'm like a real human. You can go to my LinkedIn, you can go to my Instagram. I'm like, this is me.
Right.
So, but I had, like I said, the like whole the drama, and I had people like tagging my old real estate firm, and I'm like, this is honestly just getting it's stupid. So I did change it back to Agent Bubblegum. I'm not going to be talking about real estate on there. It's actually a big thing in New York. You can't talk about real estate on your social media unless you have your license like number on your bio and like all this stuff. So I said, you know what? Just keep it separate.
Yeah.
I don't want to be like people stalking me where I am, like tagging like my employer. It's like a little bit like scary. So I was like,
Yeah.
okay, maybe I don't want people to know who I am. Kind of like, but I mean, I will say this. I don't know if I have a stalker, but somebody from FinTwit goes to my gym, and we've messaged before, and he was acting all weird, and it was just like, all right, I like don't want FinTwit crossing into my real life. That's when I kind of was like, okay, I want to be like independent of this. I still love it. I want to interact, but I don't want to be like hanging out with people and meeting everybody. It's like there's certain people I just like don't want to meet. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So did it
But in
become awkward with the guy at the gym?
yeah, because it was like, why are you not like we've messaged. We talked about the gym, and then like he'll be at the gym and I'll be like, and then he'll like pretend not to know me. And then he'll still come next to me though. It's just fucking weird. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. So
that is weird. You
but
would
it's
think
also
like
like
if I would at least just say hi, like, "Hey, how's it going?" and carry on with my day and you carry on with your day. That's how I would probably try to handle that.
I mean it was definitely weird. So I don't go at that time anymore, which is annoying because I liked going at that time, but it's like fucking internet people. But it's also New York is small at the end of the day. Like I know a few people that live in my neighborhood on Twitter under like anonymous names. Obviously, I'm not going to say who they are, but like
Yeah.
it's just kind of like you never know who's watching. Like, oh my god, it's kind of creepy. Like, do they know it's me? But I think it's just like a New York thing too. Like a lot of people live here. I don't want to say like, whatever, this and that and accuse anybody, but it's definitely a little bit like take like you get a little anxiety like, "Oh
Yeah.
my god, this person is, like, creeping me out."
Oh, wow, this has been an amazing conversation. We kinda deviated away from the topics of investing, but that's okay.
Sorry.
I've had an absolute pleasure, chatting with you. Before we sign off, do you have any final words or any parting thoughts?
I guess just, like, I think Twitter can be a great tool, like, for stuff like this and have open discussions, like, a great arena just, like, to share ideas, but I think it's important to really stick with your due diligence, like your belief, what you think, because I can't tell you how many times over the years, like I sold because of like some whatever article or newscaster or this or FUD is what they say. So I
Yeah.
think just stick with your gut, fuck the haters. Haters gonna hate and just do you. That's it. And I think that'll get you further just doing you and studying than like paying some like schmuck $200 a month for like Apple calls.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a great way great spot to leave or great way to leave it is, like, sort of, do your own research, do your own due diligence, believe in yourself. Just kinda summing up everything you just said, right, is, the due diligence, the do your own research, believe in yourself, trust your gut. Um, and yeah, with that said, if you're still here nearly 50 minutes later, I really hope you enjoyed this episode as much
I
as I've enjoyed the conversation. Sorry, what was that?
I had so much fun, and sorry if I talk too much. I talk a lot, if you can't
That's
tell.
okay. It's much better having a guest that talks than one that doesn't, right?
And thank you so much, and if I do, maybe, like, in 6 to 8 months, we can do a follow-up. If I
I'd love
do
that.
end
That'd be amazing.
up with some
So
dividend stocks, and we'll see where I end up, but right now, my biggest besides obviously everyone knows I like AMC, but I love Hims and Hers. This is like my favorite company right now.
right.
I'm in it for the long term. I'm holding a little bag. It is what it is. But I like the
Yeah,
stock. Check it out.
nice. Awesome. With that said, be sure to give Kate a follow over there on X/Twitter at Kate Duffy. And yeah, the lovely, the beautiful, the talented. Thank you again so much for being here. If you're still here well over 50 minutes later, please be sure to hit subscribe.
Thank you so much. And you're the best. And I'm gonna subscribe and watch your other ones because I have